Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Riches in the Niches podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jacomen, and I'm super excited and honored to have absolutely an amazing guest on our show today. And you guys are in for a real treat because we have one of the top guys in the insurance industry on our podcast today, and somebody who I have such enormous respect for and has built such an amazing business. And I want everybody to hear and share it with you. So we have Nick Aube. He's the founder of Producer Systems. And today we're going to talk about something that I think is, I think it's a hot topic. But before we get started, Nick, welcome to our show. And we are so honored to have you on.
Rob, dude, I appreciate you having me on. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and the anticipation has been, it's been good, man. I'm excited to get after it with you, and especially talking about the BOR and applying it to the niches. I'm excited to dive in with it.
Yeah, you know what? I think you and I are building an awesome relationship, and something that I've learned so much about your business model and what you're doing to really transform and impact the industry in a positive way. And that's the whole mission and purpose of why I do what I do with this show, is because I want to bring on guys like you who have something really valuable to share and something I think that can really transform not only the way people think about selling insurance, how to position yourself, but also the transformation that can happen when you employ or you execute on the strategies and the systems that you teach and that you help these guys implement. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Producer Systems, the problems you help to solve, the people you help to solve it for, and what kind of results and outcomes can someone expect from working with you? Like, what kind of results are you guys getting with your clients?
I guess I'll start with the problems, man. And a lot of this stuff, like the problems I lived firsthand. I produced for, I think it was like 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through like the path, right? You start out quoting, get your ass kicked, right? And then you could live there, dude. You could build a successful book just quoting. Evolved into kind of a BOR based on a coverage analysis base, or the coverage analysis, mod analysis, insert any type of analysis, right? Service timeline, whatever it is. And then from there went on BOR without having to do a coverage analysis. And so the problems, everything that we've done, it's like I've lived it, and a lot of it was solved out of necessity because I was out there, I was producing, and it wasn't going to work for me. The traditional process just was not going to work. And so when you start to look at, there's problems. I guess you're good if we start with the problems. I know you asked me about what we're doing, but can I dive into that part of it?
Yeah, actually, what I'd really like you to dive into is, like, you touched a little bit about, like, you have an amazing story to tell. And I think that's what, me personally, when the whole reason I started a podcast in the first place is because I really also wanted to hear some amazing stories from guys like you who have been in the trenches. And now, because you are basically, what you're doing now is you're solving the problem for the person that you used to be. And you've identified an opportunity to be like, man, you know what? There's a better way to do this. There's a better way to do this and to get results, and let's build it. Let's create it. Let's make something awesome. And I think that Producer Systems and what you believe about the BOR process, I think, is world-class. And I think it's an inherent thing in the system. I've been in your shoes. I've been on the other side as well, on the middle market space, in the commercial side, going after some really large accounts where, pretty much the BOR was a strategy for us. But I would love to hear your take on it and the humble beginnings of how you were at a certain point and now you are where you are now, and now you're transforming people's lives and the way they sell. And I think that's the coolest part about your story.
Well, dude, I appreciate it. And the humble beginnings is like an understatement. I was in college. I got a job at Brown & Brown. The dude's like, hey, man, you can take the summer off, like start in September. And I'm like, sweet. Okay. You going to pay me? He's like, well, I'm not going to pay you if you don't work. I'm like, well, dude, I'll start the Monday after I graduate because I don't have any damn money. Like I'm not going to take the summer off. Like, what the hell am I going to do? So I got started literally the Monday after I graduated. And was there about 6 or 8 months, did one BOR. I went back to quoting after that. Believe it or not, I got a BOR, like one of the first deals I ever got, and then went back to quoting. And so I landed. Well, dude, think about it. Here's why, right? I was surrounded good people, good producers, really talented, but they didn't sell on BOR. So what was the answer? Hey, I got the BOR, and they're like, oh man, that doesn't happen every day. Like, hey, good for you, man. You're going to see that once or twice a year. You just got to quote and grind.
It was like an anomaly.
Oh, okay. It was right.
Like the BOR anomaly.
It's like, 100%.
Yeah.
But then, so from there, though, I left Brown & Brown. I went to San Diego and started interviewing out there. There's a job that I interviewed for, and sit down, and the dude, he's probably like, I think it was like the VP or partner, whatever. He was part of the agency, a partner of the agency. They're probably doing $5 million plus in revenue. And we sit down for the deal. I'm 6 months in. I don't know shit, right? And he's like, hey, we only BOR here. Is that something you could do? Now, I did one BOR in like 6 months, and I was told that you don't do that. Like, it's an anomaly. So I'm like, I literally asked the guy, I'm like, how the hell do you write new business? Like, how are you writing a new business if you only BOR? Like, it didn't click. I didn't get it. And he's like, well, dude, we get the BOR and then we go market it. Then we go, then we take it to the market. But we've already got the commitment up front. I'm like, I'm asking this guy, he's doing 5 million revenue years plus. And I'm like, and that works for you? He's like, yes, dude, it's all we do, the whole firm. Wow. So it ended with, he's like, Nick, you should go be an underwriter. He goes, you clearly don't know enough. Go be an underwriter for 5 years and then we could talk. And I was pissed. I'm like, screw you, you son of a bitch. Like, I'm not an underwriter. I'm not gonna, come on. I was like so offended.
That's like the ultimate insult for a hunter producer type.
Oh, I was pissed, man. So I ended up getting this job though in San Diego, a different firm, competing firm. And when I landed there, I guess physically landed on the plane, flew from the East Coast. But like when I got to the office, it's like, dude, you're in luck, man. We're one of 4 agencies with an appointment to this new landscape program. At that time in California, this is 2012. There was like this legacy landscape program. They were in, everybody was with them. And this new program was coming in. They were going to kill it. We were going to be 40% less. That was the deal. I'm like, all right, sweet, let's kill it. So I started making cold calls and I'm hammering the phones. I built up a $4.8 million premium pipeline in 1 quarter. Everything renewed. Dude, it was insane. I still measured in premium. I couldn't even tell you the revenue on it. But everything renewed between April 1st and April 15th. And I'm like, I'm 22. I started spending. I'm like, this business is easy. I'm like, I love this business. I start spending money that I don't have. I'm like, even if I close 10% of this thing, I'm going to hit, I'll be good for the year. The whole thing went bust, man. Everything. I wrote $1,000 BOP. And it was this little tiny landscaper that had one little push mower and a freaking weed whacker and a leaf blower. And I drove an hour to make sure that they signed the application. I got the check because I'm like, dude, I'm not going out. I'm not going home empty-handed. I'm getting one of them. It's $1,000. That's it. I'm like, this industry sucks. I was ready to quit. I was done with it. And then I remembered the BOR, the one deal I got, that dude that I interviewed with. I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this. Started talking to some buddies at the agency, and we started studying the BOR. I'm like, that's it. If I'm going to do this thing, I'm doing it BOR or nothing else. Otherwise, I'll go sell tech. I'll do something, but there's got to be something better. Then every 90 days, wonder if I'm going to get paid. And then let's say I build the book. Now every 90 days, I'm looking over my shoulder, and they're shopping every 2 to 3 years, and I might lose it. Like, I can't handle that. And so figured out the BOR, landed at an agency back home. And 4 or 5 years into it, the thing was working. I was selling consistently and exclusively on BOR. That was it. If you didn't sign the BOR, it wouldn't work with you. I had equity in my book, an expense account, country club membership, path to the $1 million book, $2 million book, $5 million. Like, it was all there. And I just it wasn't doing it for me. I was still so focused on scaling this BOR selling system. I was so passionate about the actual process. Like, I'd sign a deal, I was pissed. Like, I don't actually want to do your insurance. Like, I just like the process. I'm glad that I convinced you to say yes.
Wow.
And so at that point, I hired a coach and I fell in love with coaching. I'm like, that's what I want to do. That's how I want to scale the process.
Wow, dude, that is amazing. It's kind of a similar journey that I had, but I exited. I'm getting the itch back. We can talk about that later.
Sell insurance?
Yeah. I could probably share it, but I'll share it later and probably in another video, but I'm investing now.
Teaser.
Well, I'm investing in other agencies that I believe in, and guys who are starting out that I really believe in and I think have a unique process that I can really help.
Yep.
So I'm taking an equity position and a piece in exchange for helping them to scale their agency using my model and using my system. What I'd really love to do is actually learn, dive deeper into your philosophy on the BOR process and how, that's how I sold. I sold by BOR. And when I couldn't get a BOR, I still positioned it as a non, see, there's two, I wanted to make sure that we weren't selling a commoditized system or a product, a transaction. Yep. I wanted there to be so much value attached to it where I started getting into total cost of risk analysis and doing these very sophisticated modeling. And those are really appropriate for the larger middle market accounts that have a lot of hair on them and they just have a lot of problems and a lot of stuff to solve. But I really want to hear more about your philosophy and your belief as to why does the BOR system even exist in the industry? What is your feeling about, I have theories about it, but what's your feeling about the BOR process in general? Because I think this is a major area where there's opportunities to improve the industry, but I think I'm just going to say it, and I might get a lot of haters for it. I think it's all by design and design from the top down to have total control at the top. And I'm not talking about agents and brokers. I'm talking about the top being the carriers, controlling the marketplace. And really, if you think about it, if you look at the independent agency distribution channel, the bottom of the totem pole is the agent and the broker, who the guys who run the ground troop level guys who are out there pounding the streets every day, who are making calls, who are creating content, who are asking for a BOR. Those are the guys that usually are the last to get paid. And also, I feel like there's a level of control that they don't always have that they should have, as well as the client. Talk a little bit about that process and what's your feeling on, I know I'm unloading a lot of stuff on you there, but I think this is a really worthwhile thing to dive deep into that rabbit hole.
It goes deep. You mentioned something, the control piece. That's what I hated. Hated about the insurance process. No control. You ever seen that? I forget what what commercial it was. Some rental car company, and they were calling him a control freak. He's like, no, I prefer the term control enthusiast. And I'm right there with the dude. Because if you think about the traditional process, it sucks. The process sucks for the consumer and for the broker. Because you, as a broker, if you break it down, there's no control, right? So there's two different things. You're either selling based on quoting, right? You're just going out and getting quotes.
Yep.
Or you're doing some sort of BOR. Traditionally, what they're doing is it's a BOR based on some sort of analysis, coverage analysis, X-amount analysis, service agreement, service timeline, stewardship report, whatever you want to call it. So two different formats. In both of them, you have no control, right? You quote. One, you have to get the information to quote. So you ask the prospect, hey, can you send me this list of shit? And that's where 50% of the deals die.
Oh.
Not right, because they're not even they might be interested. It's just okay, their business or filling out an application. What's going to come first every day, right? And so from a priority perspective, it's not a top priority for them. So it gets pushed. So now you're sitting there sending that follow-up email. Hey, man, just following up, see if we can get copies of the policies. I'm going to be in the area tomorrow. Yeah.
Hey, I need loss runs. I need the policies. I need, here's my laundry list of all this shit that I need that, you're like, why doesn't this guy want to send me what I'm asking for? He referred me to the CFO. Clearly the CFO has PDF copies of all the policies and, they're going to be very willing to give me everything I need.
100%. It's insane. So you got to get the information. Then if you're doing it, if you're quoting, okay, you get it all together. You get the apps together. Then you go to the market. You're freaking blocked everywhere. It's you're done. So you have no control, right? So now you're building that into your process. Well, I got to call earlier. People are making decisions of how they prospect based on this outdated model of quoting. It's insane.
Yep.
But if you move to the BOR model, okay, now what I'm going to promise you is a coverage analysis. Great. You're going to send me your stuff. So one, you got to send me this stuff. We already talked about the downsides of that. Just drop my pen. This thing just pisses me off so much. Right? So it's like, you got to send me the stuff. No control over you actually send it to me. Then once you send it to me, I've got to figure out if there's any gaps in coverage. Again, no control. I'm just hoping that the other agent sucks.
Yep.
Right? So now if they do suck, if that other broker didn't do a good job, then okay, I have a sales pitch now. I can at least have an opportunity to sell. If there's no gaps in coverage, we've all made the call. Hey man, you're really in a good place. Your other broker's really taking good care of you. I'd love to be number two. Like that's the worst thing you can, like that's a sales strategy. I'm going to take you out to lunch every 6 months. And when your broker screws up, I'll be here for you. I mean, it's like, it's awful. Like you're admitting the other broker's better than you. And then you're just going to wait till they mess up.
You're the backup quarterback.
Oh, dude, I don't want to be the backup.
You're in a position of weakness. You're like basically admitting, hey, when shit goes south, I want to be the next phone call that you make. I mean, I've actually heard guys use that line, which is like, dude, why on earth would you use that line on a prospect? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Because you have nothing else.
You have nothing else to say at that point. You've lost control completely.
100%.
Yep.
So then let's say that you do find gaps. Okay, great. We got gaps. Now the prospect actually has to care enough to fire their broker of 20 years because you found out they didn't have enough debris removal. It's like, dude, like, really? Like they're not moving because of that. So the process itself, the producer has no control. And then from the consumer perspective, they're in the same boat. What are they getting? Last minute renewals. They're getting no transparency, no explanation of how the market works. To them, it just feels like it's getting stuffed down their throat. So they don't like the process either because they don't have control over it. And so ultimately, what do they tell people? I want to save money. I want to save on premium. That's not what they really want. That's surface level. What they really want is control over the premium. They want to know how it works. They want to know what levers they can pull so they can make business decisions based off of that. Oh. That's what they really want.
Dude, just what you said is brilliant. I mean, if you could repeat that over and over and over, I don't think you could say it enough. That right there is that's the real problem to solve right there.
Yes. But people ignore it because so here's what you have. You have the prospect. They're saying on the surface level, I want to save premium. I want to save my premium. I want to save premium dollars, whatever the hell they say. So then people say, well, no, come on. That's beneath me to discuss price. I'm not going to sell. I refuse to sell on price. And I'm not promoting selling on price. You'll lose. But they divert it over to the coverage. So what it says to the prospect is, I don't give a shit what you said or what your number one problem is. I'm going to show you something else, coverage. And so the prospect feels like they're being ignored. They're like, dude, I get you're showing me debris removal. I get you're showing me ordinance and law, whatever the hell other coverage you got. But I told you I want to pay less, right? And so you hear it all the time. I have a great relationship with my broker. We play golf together. We travel together. Our wives are friends. We go to dinner, run the same board. All the stuff that everybody hears about how the loyal clients and they want the same type of client. But they say, if you can beat it, though, you can have it. So price is the number one problem that they're having. So what we have to do is solve their problem without selling on price. That's the key. Solve their problem without selling on price. Because that's typically the traditional path is people either just compete on price and they try and take a flyer and they get burned, or they avoid price altogether and they just talk about coverage analysis and risk management services and telematics and loss control and all the other BS that the agency offers. But it's not solving their actual problem.
Wow. You're having the conversation. You're basically reaching into the prospect's head and having that conversation with them.
Yeah.
You're extracting what they're already thinking about and being proactive about that thing that it's kind of like, I don't know, the best analogy I can think of. It's kind of like the elephant in the room kind of thing. Like you, as a broker, you want to talk about all this surface level shit. Like, hey, we can help you set up your safety committee. I mean, I've used the same thing. I've used the same.
We all have.
I was like, hey man, you don't have a safety committee. Did you know in the state of Pennsylvania, you get a 5% safety credit You're not, I looked at your policies. You're not getting the 5% safety credit. What's wrong with your agent? Do they not know that this exists? We can help you get that set up. And it's like, that's cool. And yes, I'm sure it can resonate with the prospect, but it's not like, it's just not enough to get it over the goal line to overcome the golf, the wife, the 20-year relationship and all that other stuff. It's like, yeah, Rob. Okay, whatever.
Well, a couple of things there. It's like, the other thing is, I don't want to do, as a broker, I didn't want to do safety committee meetings. It's not what I want to do.
100%.
I don't want to run your damn, like I had one client, we were good buddies by the end. He's like, when I first got with him, he's like, yeah, my old broker used to run safety committee meetings. I'm like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not coming down here once a month and I'm not doing it. I have no interest. And it doesn't actually solve your problem. So why are we gonna pretend? Like, who cares? But so you got the 20-year relationship though. Most brokers will just walk away. Yeah, I can't beat it. Got a good relationship. So they move on. And ultimately, what they try and find is a bunch of prospects that are in pain. Okay, that'd be great. If that list existed, I'm sure you'd kill it, but it doesn't, right? Most people are going to say that they're happy with their broker for a couple of reasons. One, they actually are. Or two, they don't want to go through the process again because it sucks. They've been through it. So they're not interested. So they lie and say, I'm happy. I'm good. I
just did a post about this the other day. I called it it's actually a real thing. I did research on it. ChatGPT told me it's a thing. It's called status quo bias. So these guys have status quo bias because they have pain associated with going through the painful insurance buying process. So they're more content with, they can have a shitty broker and be totally happy staying where they are.
Yeah.
Getting a last minute renewal, like 3 days before renewal. And be totally fine with staying where they are because they feel like in their minds, they feel like this is just too painful of a process to go through.
And so it is. They're not wrong.
Yeah.
Well, and think about this. Like, would you say yes to your own sales process? It's like, would you actually go through what you're asking these prospects to do? Because the process is the experience that they're having. So it's like, think about it from a mechanic example. We all have cars. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't, maybe you bike. You seem like a healthy guy. I'm sure you have a car though. But if a mechanic called you up and they're like, Rob, dude, it's the local mechanic. You've probably driven by our place a bunch. I've seen you in town and, I really want to be your guy, man. I'm sure you're with the dealership getting gouged on pricing. We're local, man. So here's the next step. Why don't you just come down to our shop on Saturday? We'll just get to know each other. I'll ask some questions, figure out if I could help you. I'd love to spend some time with you. Figure out, what you got going on. We'll talk about the car. And then, dude, I'll buy you lunch because if I'm going to be your mechanic, we got to have a good relationship. We got to build rapport. So we'll do lunch and then we'll run stay with me. Because, it sounds boring. I'm already bored saying this, but this is what is going on in the insurance industry.
So true.
So they're like, dude, yeah, we'll grab lunch. And then, I'm going to run a diagnostic report on your car. It's going to be great, man. I don't know if you've ever had one of these things done, but it just shows anything with your car that could be wrong. And so what we'll do is we'll meet next Saturday, same time. We could do lunch again, or if you want to do breakfast before, whatever you pick. And I'll give you the report of the car. In between, I'm going to have some questions. I know you work full time, but you're going to have to run to the garage and just, climb under the car and look at the oil tank and give me the VIN number off that. And maybe get some PSI under top, but small stuff, nothing big. At the end of that, dude, if I find that there's any issues with your car, then I'll ask you to be your mechanic. Does that sound good? Do you want to come down Saturday? Dude, no, I don't want to come down Saturday. I've got shit to do with my family. And not to mention, my car is running. It's running in the driveway right now. So what are you going to do? Tell me the air filter's jacked up by 70%? My brake pads are only at 83%? Like, it's not enough to switch, and the process sucks. Like, we're not going through that. But that's what we're asking prospects to do every day in the insurance industry, is that same process.
I never heard that analogy before, but holy shit, that makes so much sense. Think about it. I can't wait to tell this. Like, I can't wait to share this because it's like common sense tells you that that's a really shitty way to sell and it's a shitty process.
Horrible. But we We see producers do it all day long. Like, if your first step is, hey, I'd love to come meet with you. First of all, of course you would love to, because you're going to get paid a bunch of money. What's in it for the prospect? Would they love to sit and meet with you? Right. And so the idea is, like, it's awful for them to say yes to. The other, like, if we flip it, let's say, okay, we just went through the mechanic example, but let's say a mechanic called you up and said this, Silverado is my dream truck. Right. So let's say they were like, the mechanic calls me up and says, Nick, see you drive a Chevy Silverado. What we found is that every mechanic's going to call you up and tell you that you got to put synthetic oil in that thing. For whatever reason, it jacks up the oil, it jacks up the engine on the Silverado. It's going to cause it to break down faster. You're going to spend more maintenance over the life of the vehicle. You're going to have to get a new truck sooner. You have 15 minutes to see if or how this new oil strategy could help you out. It's like, holy shit, dude, I'm taking that call. Why? Because I don't have to go to his office so he can ask me a bunch of questions to maybe see if something's wrong, to then try and convince me that I should fire my current mechanic. He knows the problem and he knows the solution. And I just got to get on a call for 15 minutes to see if or how this might apply to my truck and what I'm doing. That's the value that you can bring. And if you think, related back to the insurance industry, we know the problem. It's premium. We talked about that before. That's their number one problem. So we don't need to sit down with any prospect. We don't need to look at any of their policies. We don't need to ask them 1,000 questions about their business. Oh, wow, your grandfather founded this 200 years ago. Oh, that's an original piece of equipment. How beautiful. What was it like? I don't give a shit. I know your problem. You have a problem. It's premium. It's out of control. You have no control over it. It's last minute every year. The reason you're having that problem is because you quote. Quoting is a thing of the past. It used to work. It's no longer effective to get the best premium. There's a better strategy out there. You got 15 minutes to see if or how the strategy to apply to you and your business.
Wow. Dude,
that's the move.
You have these sold.
Let's go. Let's jump on a call tomorrow. Well, oh, then you cap up. What works best? Tomorrow at 3 or Monday at 2?
Monday at 2, man. Let's get the show in the road. Like, let's get started. I mean,
but think about. Go ahead.
But so there's a lot to unpack there, because I think what you have to do, and I think this is where I'm seeing the brilliance in you as a person and a coach. I can see that you are, you know how some people are just designed a certain way, like they have just this certain flair and passion and belief in what they're doing. I've noticed about you in like less than 5 minutes. I could tell that you were built to do what you're doing right now. And it's a compliment, because I think we need more guys like you in the industry. And I just don't think they exist. I think we have this old school mentality. How many sales coaches and trainers, and I'm not going to mention any names, are still teaching shit from the 90s, and how you got to just bang through. You've seen my content. You know, I'm like a cold calling kind of guy, where I'm like, dude, you're just not going to provide that kind of value. You've got to have a different pitch. You have to have a different strategy. Here's the word that you used. You used the word strategy. I want you to dive deeper into that, because I think that is the critical thing here and it sounds to me like what you teach and what you coach on is actually empowering the client, the end user. We always forget about these guys. Like, we're so concerned about the markets and blocking the markets and the carriers and our carrier relationships and this underwriter and this underwriter. But at the end of the day, it's all about the customer. And what I'm hearing you say, and I could be wrong, I'd love to hear your thoughts about this, is you're actually providing a more customer-centric model and strategy that's going to empower them and give that control back to them. And that's where it belongs.
First off, dude, I received that compliment, so thank you. It didn't go unnoticed. Second, you're spot on. This is what this big misconception about the BOR, because there's a bunch of people out there that use it in a sleazy way. Right? Oh, you just got to sign this and I'll give you a quote. Scumbag, you should lose your damn license. Right? It's like, you've got to be open, you got to be transparent, you have to be honest. The BOR is actually a tool for the client. That's what producers need to understand. It's not about the producer. We like it. It's sexy for us. We could take the sales process from 90 days and do it in 9 days or less. We can do it without getting policies. We can make it faster. We can grow our books faster. We can be more efficient. We can make more money. We can be happier. All those things are amazing from the producer perspective, but the client ultimately doesn't give a shit that you made more money and you're happier. They want to know what's in it for them. And so ultimately the BOR is a tool for the prospect, for the customer, for the client. Because if we think about it, what do they want? Back to their number one problem, saving on premium. That's what they're going to tell you. Don't write them off right away and go, price shopper, I'm done. Chill out. That's not what they mean. What they're saying is they want control over their product, over their premium. So how do they get control? The BOR. That's the answer to their problems. Because ultimately, if you think about this, we all know how the pricing game works, right? What's the first question an underwriter asks you? Do you control the account?
Yeah. Or where do we need to be?
Right. Where do we need to be? That's another good one. I'll give you the damn number.
It's like, what the hell do you mean? Where do we need to be? Like, you're right. Well, what do you know about? Can you just tell me about this account? Can you tell me, do you have copies of their policies? Do you know where they are in premium? I'm like, going that whole process is like a bunch of nonsense, because then you go down that road and then you're like, well, we saw this account the last 5 years and I'm just going to decline it because we don't want to waste our time. Yep. And I'm like, it's like the whole, I would think about that. I'm like, man, these guys are so jaded, some of these underwriters, and I have the fullest respect for underwriters because they've got a tough job. But at the end of the day, man, they too have to change their mindset about this whole process. And they are so jaded right now because they see this crazy game being played by brokers against each other and playing games and being sleep. Like you said, I have a great story to tell you. Remind me to tell you the story of how I got full control, pretty much full control over an account, a really large general contractor. And unbeknownst to her, I was dealing with the wife of the owner. Obviously they're co-owners. Yeah. I'll just tell the quick story because I'd love to hear your take on this. Yeah. So I used my process. I actually loved my process because it positioned me with strength with the prospect. I explained to them the journey and what I would do to leverage the markets and help them, really navigate the marketplace. So that was one of my things that it was really important to me. And also solving problems like subcontractor agreements. They didn't have any of those in place and yada, yada, yada. So I got to a point where I had pretty much full control. The incumbent found out that I was involved and I don't know what the heck he was thinking. He went to my top market, which I already had, and ended up going to the client and saying, or at this time it was a prospect for me, going to the prospect and saying, hey, if you just, and by this time I'd already had all my numbers in. I had like 5 or 6 different markets that I was kind of comparing and I wanted to put together a nice proposal. And I settled on a specific carrier. I'm like, I'm going with these guys. I love their forms. Anyway, it's not even important. It was the best program for the client. I ended up getting a letter from the underwriter or a notice from the underwriter like, yeah, you just been BOR, like your quote was just BOR'd. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? My quote was just BOR'd. Well, as it turns out, I reached out to the client or the prospect and said, hey, what's going on? And she said, well, our current agent who we had been working with, we really like you, Rob, because we actually want to make the switch. He came to us and said that he needed access to this particular market. And so he gave us a letter to sign. Well, I said, did he explain to you what the hell the letter meant? Like what it said? And she's like, I don't know. It would give him the opportunity to be able to quote with that market again, and give us another option. And I said, well, I don't know if he explained this to you. Can you share with me what he gave you? And anyway, the guy was sleazy about it and basically said, hey, if you sign this letter, it's going to give me the opportunity to get access to this market so I could get this quote. So basically he BOR'd my quote after me doing all the work with the underwriter. and then went to the client and said, hey, sign this letter, and never really explained full transparency what the letter meant. And I was pissed. And so guess what? So was the client. And she said,
yes.
She said, what's going on in your industry? Like, why would this happen? Can't I have two brokers work with the same carrier, giving me a quote? And I'm like, that's just not the way it works, And she was actually pissed when she found out what that letter meant, because he did not explain it to her. And it was actually unethical, in my opinion. And you made a really interesting point. Like, you should be fired for something like that. Not only that, but you lose your license for not having full transparency and honesty and integrity with the client. And so
100%.
That was a situation that I've told that story many times. And people are like, even people who aren't part of the industry are like, are you kidding me? Like, that actually happened? I'm like, yes.
Dude, it happens all the time.
It's sleazy.
Dude, it is sleazy. Well, and so here, you said a lot in there, like a lot of gold. A couple of things. We were talking about the client having control and using the BOR as a tool. Okay, so yes, it pissed you off, pissed off the client. Think about it though. What happens when that goes on with the underwriters? They start to back away. They're like, I don't know if I want to write this account. They say what you said earlier. Dude, we've looked at this thing for 5 years. There's been 10 agents on it. We never win it. We quote it every year. Their name's trash in the marketplace. I'm not interested in it. So what happens? One of the premier carriers, somebody who will write that account, who could be highly competitive, declines. So when we bring it back to the prospect, how does that impact them? It hurts your pricing. You're saying on the front end, well, you want to solve for premium. You want to pay less. Really, what you want is control. Well, you just blew it in the market because you prospect. It's on the prospect. It's on the client. You mismanaged the marketplace. And you had two brokers tripping over themselves, pissed off the underwriters 5 years in a row. So you got declined. You're saying you want to pay less, but your actions are telling me you want to pay more, because the way you're acting is somebody who wants to actually pay more in premium. And so what we have to do is show the prospect, here's how the market works. You want to pay less? Dude, I get it. Let me show you how to do that. First of all, cut the bullshit. Get rid of all these agents. You got to pick one. Okay, great. You're on the same page. Cool. Here's how you pick one. Here's how you identify one that's running the right strategy, that's not going to trash your name in the marketplace. Here's some questions you could ask. Right? And we start to tee them up and get them to understand, here's how the insurance industry works. Here's how the pricing game works. It's crazy. You were talking about the underwriters are burnt out, overwhelmed. Okay, we're not going to change that. All we can do, prospect, is take control of how we manage that. So if that's the game, let's figure out, if they ask, do you control the account and what's the premium? Well, let's give them a target. And let's make sure that whoever represents you to that carrier controls the account. That's your best way, prospect, to pay the least amount possible. Is to whoever goes in to represent you, they are in control. The way you do that is the BOR. So it's like they've got to get in the driver's seat. So I've got 1,000 different examples I could give you, but it's a tax example. I'm obsessed with legally and ethically paying the least amount of taxes possible. I've been doing a bunch of research the past 5 years. There's a tax strategy called the Augusta rule. I don't know if you've heard of it. That's the slang term. The technical term, I don't know. But so it's Augusta rule. Augusta, Georgia, the masters. These people down there, they'd rent out their primary house for 2 weeks, 14 days. And they were getting killed on taxes. They were making a killing, but they'd have to pay taxes on it. So they lobbied and they got a tax loophole passed. It's called the Augusta rule. You can look it up, where you can rent your primary house out for 14 days and not pay taxes on the income. So traditionally, it's what? It's Airbnb. Okay, great. But then they figured out you could apply it to business. So if you have a business and you work from home, you can rent your home from yourself for certain activities, Christmas party, podcast recording studio. There's all these different things that you can do. And so what you would do is you pay yourself a fair market rate. You pay your personal bank account from your business for renting the property for 14 days. Right? So it's just, and I'm not trying to get into tax strategy, but just as an example, right? So if somebody says, hey, I want to pay less in my taxes. I did this. I met with a CPA. They said, well, here's your answer. Run the Augusta rule. You could save X amount because you're going to move profit from your business. You're going to pay yourself rent for using the space, and then you won't have to pay tax on it. It'll save you 20% off the top.
Yep.
Cool. What I said in the beginning was I want to save on taxes. What I really wanted was control, and I wanted to know how the game worked. I didn't know that until I got into it. Because there's other stuff that I could do that I was like, I'm not there yet. I don't need to do that. But I got to make the decision. So now I was paying more in taxes, but I was aware of why, because I set up the game and I set up the structure the way I wanted. And so if we think about what the solution in that example, the solution is not the new CPA firm, right? The solution is I need to run the Augusta rule. And I can do that with any CPA in the country as long as they're equipped and they're aware of how the Augusta rule works. So where it played out for me was I became educated on the Augusta rule. I called my current CPA and said, hey, I want to run this play. And he said, I don't know about that. Okay, well, I do. I've done my research. I want to do it. It's legal. I can do it ethically. This new firm, they said, hey, if you decide to come with us, we've got the setup to execute the Augusta rule on your behalf. Okay, I'll go with you. The solution was not that firm, right? And so if we think about from the perspective of the prospect, I'll bring it back to the insurance world now. Most people, where they get hung up with the BOR is they ask the prospect for the BOR and they say, my firm is the solution to all your problems, sign the BOR. That is not true. The solution to their problem is to have one broker creating a competitive environment with the carriers, playing the game, negotiating with the insurance companies. That's their solution. And the BOR is the tool to do that. So the BOR becomes the prospect solution. Now they just need to find what broker can actually execute that strategy. So when we're selling on BOR, we're not actually selling the BOR. We're not actually selling the agency. We're selling the prospect on a new way to buy insurance. And if they buy into that, then it's game over. They'll sign the BOR every time.
Wow. You guys just take a pause right there. Like, take a deep breath, everybody.
I got to breathe too. I got going on a rant. It's like,
so I've been doing this, 18 years? I have never really heard of that as a strategy. And like, I cannot wait to watch this back again. Like, I'm not even actively running an agency or producing right now. And that makes all the sense in the world to me. That's a strategy. And here's the other benefit of that I see. And I'd like to hear this before we dive into, I want to learn a little bit more about, just given the time, I want to learn a little bit more about your feelings on industry niche, specialization, and how that's impacting the industry and how this fits in with your model. But what I really want to dive into is you're actually applying leverage, and you're giving more control to the client, not upstream. Whereas it's counter to the way most brokers leverage a BOR, is it actually gives control upstream versus the client. And you, by the way, because when you're asking for a BOR the wrong way, it's actually it's a very self-motivated way to do it. And it's not necessarily going to get the results that you are potentially looking for on behalf, like for the client. Some people use them the wrong way. There are situations where I felt like, did I really demonstrate and prove my value before I ask for the BOR? Like, that was my thought process. Hey, I've got to prove myself. I've got to do all this work for this client or this prospect who's not even a client yet. And there's no guarantee that I'm even going to get the business. So I'm going to do the BOR. I'm going to do the T-core analysis. I'm going to do the coverage review. I'm going to do the contract review. I'm going to look at all of your certs. I'm going to yada, yada, yada. Like, go through that checklist, man. And you can do all that work. You can analyze all of their loss runs and say, hey, I ran this through my fancy schmancy EMOD, analysis software. And here's the result. You shouldn't be at a 1.5 mod. You should be, we can help you get down, where you should be. If we just do this, 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 and this. That's the way I used to sell.
Yep.
And then I felt in my mind like I was worthy to ask permission for the BOR, because I've demonstrated and proved my value. What you're saying, Nick, is it's actually a strategic tool to be used to empower the client or the prospect, not necessarily for you to do all this work only to not being guaranteed anything, which is like, that's really frustrating. Imagine working on $100,000 revenue account. You do all this work and then they just stay where they are because they have status quo bias, because they're like, man, this is just too painful for me to go through. That's what scares me about a lot of the work that these guys are doing before they even have control over that account.
Yeah, but you don't need it to, like, it doesn't belong in the sales process. You want to go run T-Core, you want to do the coverage analysis, you should, after they agree to work with you.
Yes.
Because you can show them, hey, once you become a client, here's what we do. Boom, 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 boom. But you mentioned a couple of things, value. People always say, well, the prospect wants me to work for it. They want me to prove it. So what do guys do? They do a coverage analysis. You got brokers out there going out doing, what would you call it? Basically taking it to market, right? They might quote something. Like they might quote a line to prove that, that they worked for it.
I've done that.
Oh, we've all done it.
Hey, let me get a couple auto quotes for you. Give me your fleet list, and I'll go ahead and get a couple. I'll see what the market has to say and see what I can do. It's crazy.
Yeah, and you got brokers out there that are saying, hey, they wanted me to prove it. Here's how you prove it without doing any work. You show them the strategy to solve their problem, which is to pay less. That's how you prove it. And we can do that very quickly because we know the strategy. We know it involves having one broker, creating leverage in the market. Here's how you create leverage prospect. Here's what you do. Now, the fear is people say, well, why wouldn't they just go back with their other broker? If I tell them to have one broker, I can't do that. You can't. You just have to set it up properly. Because here's one question that you could ask. How did you prospect? How did your relationship start with your current broker? Well, they quoted it 6 years ago. And I've been with them ever since. Okay. They're running the outdated strategy. Because if they took you to market against your incumbent broker, they damaged your reputation in the marketplace. They did not give you the most leverage in the market, and they created an environment where you actually left money on the table. With that one question, we know if their broker's running the right strategy or not. So if we get them to buy into the strategy first, we can then prove that their current broker is not running the strategy and that they need to find another broker who can execute the strategy, or they can babysit the incumbent broker and make sure that they execute the strategy effectively. Either one, I don't care, but that's what you need to do to solve your problem. If you'd like me to be the broker to solve your problem, let me know. I'll send you the letter. We can start next week. I appreciate your time. I'll see you later. Right? We're not actually selling. We're not begging for the BOR. It's like, here's the best way to do it. I could not possibly quote, because if I quoted, I'd be hurting your reputation in the market. So I just told you that. So the only way forward for you is to pick one broker. If you want to go screw it up and quote with 3 brokers, that's fine, but I'm not going to be a part of it. If you want to run it the right way, you can do it on your own, babysit the other broker, or I'll do it for you. Either way, I don't give a shit. I got other people to meet with. Right? Like, that's the attitude we want to take versus commission breath, which is what I had at one point. I'd pitch the BOR and they'd say, you can quote it. I'd go, okay. Just lost all credibility.
100%. But the last 2 minutes of your scripting right there, because I could tell you've done this quite a few times. The last 2 minutes right there was all about you controlling the conversation and basically coming in here with confidence and saying, like, I have the strategy. If you want to work with me, great. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get to work to solve that problem that you told me that you had. If not, that's okay too. I've got other people to meet with. I love that. It's like, I love you, but I've got some other people to help. I got some other lives to change. I've got some other big opportunities to work on.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're giving them the strategy. So that's how you can say that. When you make the pitch based on I'm the firm, the answer to your problem is me and my firm, you can't say that. You can't deliver it the same way. But when you set it up and you say, look, you told me, prospect, your number one problem is premium. I just showed you how to solve that. Here's how you do it. You've got to run this strategy. Here's the steps you need to take. Here's how the market works. Here's everything you need to be aware of. Here's how the underwriters are actually pricing this thing. Here's how you play that game. That's the play. You can run it. Here at the agency I'm at, here's how I set up my book to help you execute that smoother. These are the things that I provide. This is what we do. And that's where you can insert all the services that you have. But the services support the strategy.
Wow.
And so then when you do that, you can say, you can either go do this on your own, or I can help you execute it. Either way is good. So the BOR is not this pushy sale. It's like, I showed you the best way to do it. It's your choice. And if you want me to do it, here's what it looks like.
I've heard so many guys in the industry who are these, I call them the BOR thumpers, the chest beaters. And I don't put you in that category, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have you on the show talking about this. But I don't necessarily agree with their approach and their strategy. What you're talking about is completely different. It completely flips the table on this whole view that I think that a majority of people have in the industry. And so here, shifting gears, just for the sake of time, I want to be respectful of your time. Yeah. I think there's an opportunity for us to continue this conversation in the future, of course. What's your position on the stuff that I teach, which is matches and I think is a perfect marriage to your strategy and what you teach. And that is, my belief is the path to success is through industry niche specialization, becoming so freaking good at what you do and the knowledge that you have of specific industries and having all that leverage in the marketplace, because because you're a specialist, you have access to things that other brokers don't have access to and other advantages. Business owners want to do business with experts and specialists. I know that because I've talked to them. I've interviewed them. I've said, hey, compare broker A and broker B. I did a post about that the other day. Broker A, generalist. It's kind of a cookie cutter. Broker B is an industry niche specialist in landscaping. You brought up landscaping earlier, but specifically landscaping for, commercial properties or commercial, whatever. That's a really unique, very specific niche in the marketplace. What is your feeling on how that fits in with the agent or the broker of the future and how they can leverage your process and your strategy into their agency or into their, if it's a producer, how can they fit that into their system?
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts. One is, for a long time, I was against niches early in my career. And for two reasons. One is, I went to a conference early on and this dude spoke and he had a niche with car dealerships. Mm-hmm. He was one of the coaches at the insurance company. And then overnight, the carrier removed the appointments and went direct. And he lost his entire book. Oof. And so that was one of the first guys I learned from. And so he was like, don't have multiple. So I was like, oh, shit, I'll just do that. So I was a generalist. But then ultimately where I landed was my niche was the BOR. My niche was being an expert in the marketplace.
I was just going to bring this up.
Right? So it's like, I did technically, and you helped me realize this in one of the conversations that we've had. It's like you niched in that. And it was true. If you played by my rules, if you understood that the BOR was a tool for you as a prospect or a consumer, and you wanted to do that, I would help you do it. So my expertise was how to negotiate the marketplace. That was my first quote unquote niche, if you would call it that. Where I think the opportunity for producers have, and what you teach is so valuable, is to do both, right? Become an expert in the market, but then the reason why we niche needs to change. The explanation to the prospect. We all know internally why. Why, right? I'm better understanding the coverage. I can put together better insurance programs. I can speak the language, all of them. When we talk about prospecting and going after prospects, what I like about niching now, and you and I have talked a bunch about the Hermosi book, he talks about this, speak the prospect's language. So when you niche, you get very familiar with how they're talking about the problems. And so you can craft your messaging very specifically. So that's one of the big benefits to to niching, is you can truly understand the prospect. And so, for example, we talk about negotiating insurance premiums, right? Run the right strategy to negotiate insurance premiums. Well, contractors talk differently. They might say, hey, I want to keep my agent honest. So if I was cold calling a contractor, I would use that. And I was familiar with that because I niched in that. I was specialized in that. I would use that in my outreach. Hey, Rob, I know you're GC. We help contractors keep their agent honest without having to go to market. You got 15 minutes to see if or how I could help you out. Because I niche, I know how they're talking about it. What does that dude actually mean? He wants to pay less in premium, but that's how he talks about it. So if we can, again, solving their premium problem, but now with niching, we can do it in their language. That's next level shit.
Yep.
So that's why niching matters. Now, when you get to presenting the strategy, everyone wants to talk about, I'm a niche. I know that they wouldn't say I'm a niche. What would they say? I guess I'm an expert in this niche. I know all the coverage. Who cares? We've talked about this earlier. The prospect doesn't care in the beginning. The first problem they're trying to solve is premium. Once you solve that, then yes, they care that you're an expert in the coverage. So if you're a niche expert, you can say now when you pitch the strategy, prospect, here's the strategy. You need one broker to go negotiate and create leverage in the market. Ideally, what you need to find is a broker who specializes specifically in your industry, simply because they will have the relationships with the underwriters and they will be able to negotiate better premium terms than a generalist.
Bingo.
That's you told me you want to solve premium, prospect. Here's how you do it. So now when you transition to how you can help them execute the strategy, now you can deliver the fact that you're a niche expert because they'll care. Because they understand they need to find somebody who's an expert if they want to solve the premium problem. So then you shift and you say, however you want to get to the shift, and we don't have to go, we could spend a whole podcast just on that one thing, transitioning from the strategy to the ask, right?
Yep.
But so you get there and you say, look, here's how I've set up my book of business. I'm an expert in your niche. I have the relationships. I could run the strategy for you and I can negotiate at a very high level because I know the underwriters. Is this something you want to move forward with me? Are you against having me be your broker, or do you want to go find other representation in the marketplace? So that's how I'd connect the niches.
Love it. Absolutely.
Chances are they're going to take you, dude. Or what you could do is you could provide them a list of other niche experts and say, hey, I made it easy for you. You can call these other brokers and ask them these specific questions. You know those brokers are going to fail or they won't want to do it. They're just going to hire you.
When you give them the choice between two, so that's the genius in your approach, because when you get to the point, you've now said your script, you've actually shared your script probably 3 or 4 times on this podcast. When you get to the point where you're asking, do you want this or do you want this? Their natural inclination is going to be, I want that because I actually trust you more. And I've always said this, and people can agree or disagree with this. When you're spot on your messaging and you're spot on with your approach to industry niche specialization, that actually, the benefit of niche is not necessarily that you know the industry inside and out. The benefit of having a specific industry niche or target class of business that you focus on is to bridge that trust gap. Because we are an all-time low in any, industry. I would say that industry wide in all industries, we're at an all-time low with trust. Mm-hmm. And to really build that trust, you have to know what the hell you're talking about. You have to understand the industry lingo. Like you said, contractors are going to talk very different than restaurant owners, but you got to know that. So you've got to meet them where they are. And you've got to psychologically connect with them in a way to enable you to have these conversations in the first place. Because they'll respect that. And that's a trust building. It's kind of like you said, the BOR is a tool. Guess what? So is industry niche specialization. It's a tool. It's a tool to get you whatever you're looking for. Do you want to try to get a seat at the table? Great. Create some content around a very specific niche, speak their language, speak to the problems that they're having so that they perceive you as an expert. You don't have to be you don't have to be the expert. I'm sure that broker could do just as good of a job if they knew how to do the strategy as you. But because you're marketing yourself that way, you're positioning yourself and your personal brand in a way that helps them bridge that trust gap. And I think that's that's probably the greatest benefit of niching down today is that trust element, because there's a lot of other experts out there, and they could probably do a very good job, but connecting with them on that level, it's kind of a psychological thing. And I think that sets the table for being able to have that conversation with them in the first place, because a lot of the generalists that I'm talking to right now, they're banging their heads. They're like, what do I say on a call? How do I build my network? All these things are solvable. And then once you solve them, then you go downstream, everything else takes care of itself. But what I love about your process, and then we can wrap it up whenever we could go into all these different areas. But what I love about the way you're positioning this is your BOR strategy is the niche.
Yep.
So if you want to be a generalist, great. I've always said there's two ways to specialize. You either specialize in specific industries and then you scale each one, like specialize in one, scale it, go after another one, scale it, go after another one, scale it.
Yep.
Like that's how you build a massive book of business. You're not pigeonholed into one industry. I've never said that to anybody. Like you don't have to be. I've had arguments with guys on social about this. I'm like, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is master one. Then once you learn the system in the process of mastering one, that enables you to go to another one and master that one and scale it. Because once you know the system, like producer systems, your business name has the word systems in it. It's a system that's designed to get a very specific result and an outcome. And what I'm teaching is no different. It's like you can either specialize in industry niches or classes of business, or you can specialize in specific areas like the BOR or cyber liability, like cyber or EPLI, whatever is that low hanging fruit or a problem that you can solve. That's your niche. Use
100%.
it.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree with you. And the trust thing is huge. Think about why do people don't trust the insurance industry? Because they've never heard about blocking the market. They've never heard that underwriters can negotiate deals based on the fact that they saw it 5 years in a row and they want to decline it. Like, no kidding, they don't trust people in the industry is because they don't even know how it works. So if you can expose that and tack on the fact that you're an expert in their specific niche, their specific class of business, it's game over. You're going to build so much trust, so much value. Everybody's out there trying to, I got to create value. Let me show my total cost of risk and my telematics review and all the software we have. That the fastest way to build trust with them is to show them how it works. Be honest with them. Here's how you play the game. And if you want to do it with me, great. If you don't, cool.
Yeah.
That's the fastest way to build trust.
I think it's amazing. You have an amazing process. I'd love to continue the conversation with you at another time and go down these different areas. And I would love to learn more about your coaching program and what you do and offer to the industry. Man, I think you're like the best kept secret, because you and I just got to know each other this year. And I'm so grateful and honored to have this relationship with you. And I think, you bring so much value to the industry, and it's desperately needed. It's desperately needed. I don't mean it in an overly dramatic way. It's just like, sometimes you just think about, man, the system is just broken. Let's fix it. Let's fix it. And what I think is the most broken part of the system is the very problem that you help to solve. And that is having control. Again, something I've been writing about and I've been sharing openly is that there's way too much control up here and not enough control to where it really matters most. And that is with the broker and the client relationship. And that being the real mechanism that gets people the results and the outcomes that they're looking for, and kind of stealing that control back. I know I get in trouble for saying it, but it is what it is, man. It's all by design.
It is, but so think about this with taxes. Back to that example. No control over the top, what the tax code is, what the rules are, how the changes, all of that stuff. But what we can control is once the rules are set, how we play the game. That's why you work with a good CPA. That's why I've spent the past 5 years trying to understand tax strategy so I can know, okay, what am I doing? What moves can I make? Because we can't spend our time worrying about controlling the top. So it's the same with the prospect. Hey, the tools, the BOR, the rules of the game are going to change. Some carriers are going to hate the BOR. Some carriers are going to do this. They're going to try and screw you over. Doesn't matter, prospect. Whatever happens, there's other carriers that are going to be really good. They're going to want to work with you. Great. Let's find those carriers. The rules of the game will continue to change, but the number one thing is if you have the BOR, if you use that as a tool in the market to manage your reputation and negotiate with the underwriters, you can deal with whatever rule changes come down. That's how you take back control regardless of what's going on at the top. And then you just have to find a broker who can help you execute that. That's what you're looking for, prospect. You're not looking for another quote. So that's how they take it back.
Man, I couldn't have said it any better. Here's my closer, and I love this part. This is where we shift gears and we talk about more the personal side, where this is perhaps my favorite question. And I love this part of the podcast more than anything else. And that is, Nick, I want you to just imagine, projecting out when you have maybe sold your business or whatever happens in your business and career. And you're just kind of sitting on the beach, kind of admiring the view. And you're like, looking back and reflecting on the impact that you've had on the industry or people's lives, what would you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember Nick by?
Just pretty simple. I mean, it's a great question. And it's like, you got me thinking on it, but really just that I inspired them to think differently, that I went all in, I played all out, and I actually changed the game. I mean, that's really what I'm after. Because at the end of the day, you mentioned it. It's like the system's broken, man. It really is. And I used to cold call people when I was selling the BOR thing, or selling on BOR, and I'm like, hey man, we're changing the industry. You want to take some 15 minutes, see if you'd be a part of it? I had a guy laughing. He's like, oh yeah, you're going to change this effed up industry? He kind of teed off. It's like, no, dude, I'm serious. Like, this can change the game. And at the time, I didn't know I was going to be doing what I was doing now, but I truly felt that even back then when I was, just selling policies one-off, like I felt like it was changing the game for every person that I met with. And that's what got me going on some of this stuff. It's like more people need to hear about this because it is absolutely game changing for the producer and for the consumer.
Man, I love it. It's funny. I'm rereading again Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets. And I got to the point, Nick, where he's talking about how do you create a movement that will change people's lives? That's the question. It's right. I underlined it right here. Mm-hmm. How do we create a movement that will change people's lives? That's the challenge and the question. You just answered it for yourself. Mm-hmm. You're like, this is going to change the game. I truly believe that can change the game. And I think that if you truly believe that what it is that you offer to the marketplace can change the game, like I truly believe that, you can tell like the passion that comes through with you, passion that comes through with the way I talk about industry niche specialization and positioning yourself as a true expert in the marketplace to bridge that gap over your competition to help elevate you. I totally believe the combination of these two things, I think, is the ultimate knockout punch. It's the ultimate knockout punch. If you can marry these two ideas of, hey, I'm going to be an expert in this industry, I'm going to put my stake in the ground and I'm going to own it. Not only that, but I'm also going to bring a strategy to my prospects and to my clients to help them win the game. Mm-hmm. That's lights out.
Agreed. It is game over.
Game over. Game over.
If you can't win a deal after doing that, maybe you should become a banker.
Or an underwriter. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, man.
Yeah. It's like the dude that hit me up.
We started off with, man, that's a great way to end. Nick, thank you so much. You've been absolutely one of the most inspirational guys that I've met. And this is, if I was to share one thing for you, this is bringing on a guy like you is the reason I do what I do. This is purpose driven for me to bring guys like you and to learn from guys like you and share it with others. And you never know where this is going to go, but you know what? if you don't start something and think about it being like you did, you said, man, this is a game changer, and other people can doubt you. But if you believe it, there's not anything you can't accomplish. And you just got to believe, and you just got to believe in it. So Nick, how can people find out about you and learn more about you? What's the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn's probably the best. I'm posting on there weekly. Yeah, obviously you can connect with me, DM me, or you can hit up our website, producer.systems. We've got all the information there, contact info, all that.
Awesome. And you have a coaching program? You have a what's the name of your coaching program?
The BOR Brotherhood. So it's
I love
dude, it's great.
You got me excited last time we talked about that, because I was like, I think that's another thing for us to talk about next time is when I have you on again is talk about the impact that you're making on those guys who are in your BOR Brotherhood. And when I asked you about it, our pre-show preparation,
yeah,
I could see you light up, because you're like, man, I was just designed to do this. And I just love having these guys on calls, and just the impact you can make is just, it's an incredible feeling.
It really is. It's more rewarding, more exciting, more enjoyable than I could have ever even imagined, dude. It's so freaking fun getting on those calls and talking. I mean, we just talked BOR and strategy and how to win deals. Like it's a freaking blast.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, thank you so much, Nick. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure. And you are a first-class, world-class guy and really changing the game for the industry. And we're all grateful for that. So Nick, we'll have you on again soon. And for everybody out there listening and watching today, thank you so much for being part of this show. And we want to get the message out there. So if you like what you're hearing, you like what you're seeing here, I honestly don't know how we're going to top this episode, but we're just going to keep trying to push the envelope of what's possible. So you just never know. Nick, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys later.